Hey guys, welcome back to my videos. In this video today, I wanted to talk about compassion. I want to talk about something that I believe, I know this world really needs more of. And I think this is something that when some people hear this, it will actually alleviate a lot of your frustration against other people. And basically, what I wanted to talk about with compassion is that in so many of our lives, we get so frustrated with other people, whether that's in personal relationships or just in traffic or customer service, and just in general. We get so frustrated with other people's behavior, and I'm definitely guilty of that too. I get very irritable and annoyed and all of that. I'm working on it. And basically, what I'm saying is that if we really understood, if we took a step back, and I know it's difficult in the moment and it's going to take practice and it might not happen in the moment and it might be something that happens later when you take a step back from the situation. But if we really understood truly where certain people were coming from, we would not be nearly as affected by their actions. One, because a lot of the things that people do, most of the things that people do, come from like a place within them that basically makes it so it's not personal against you. So whether that's someone being rude to you or whatever it is, first of all, just knowing, like this is for ourselves, knowing that it is not personal. Again, because if someone is treating someone else poorly or any of that, we know that it's coming from a place within them. But compassion, I guess what I'm talking about, is also being less judgmental towards people. I wanted to give, there's so many examples I have, but I'm just going to give like two examples throughout this entire video, just to kind of shorten it, to kind of give you guys the idea. This is a really extreme example, but I was watching a YouTube video the other day of this lady that I follow, and she shared a personal story about how when she was married to this particular man, she arrived at his workplace to drop his lunch off for him. And when she looked, she saw him and this other woman that he worked with, and this lady had her arms all over her husband and was hanging off of him. And she was just like, what is going on? And then, so let's just think about that. What would we do realistically in that situation? Well, some people would anyways. Well, actually, let's not talk about what we would do in that situation. But you know how you would feel, how infuriated you would feel in that situation. And she just felt this peace come upon her. And this is from God that she felt. And he said to her, he gave her a heart of compassion for this lady. And he said, she's a single mom. And by the way, this is not excusing people's behavior. I'm going to get to that in a second. He's like, she's a single mom. She's desperate for attention, and she suffers from rejection. So that's why she's acting this way. And obviously, she's still in those situations. You still have to deal with what's happening. But when you can understand that someone's actions is coming from a place, which I'm going to get into, a place that can be so broken and full of so much pain, then it alleviates a lot of the frustration and anger that you would have towards that person. Now, I know that that's a huge, that's difficult to get to that point, and that comes through heart transformation of really being able to have that compassion for other people. I know people that there's certain people that have really annoying tendencies, but really if that person is being so annoying and desperate for attention, that just goes to show that there is a void within them, that they have suffered from rejection. Something that I actually thought of, that I don't really know how to word this. I'm trying to find a way to word this without using specific words, but there's a lot of judgment, especially towards women with shaming them with their promiscuity, and just being like, oh yeah, that girl's really promiscuous, she slept with so many people, and just kind of judging people right off the bat. Honestly, let's just think about it, especially with my generation, our generation. Actually, this probably happens in every generation, but I feel like we're so quick to be like, oh yeah, that girl, she's sleeps around with everyone, blah, blah, blah. And we're so quick to make judgment against people like that. But instead of focusing on that person and thinking about all the people that they've slept with and judging them, maybe taking a step back and thinking, why is that person behaving that way in the first place? We have no idea where certain people have come from. Oftentimes when someone's acting in that way, you don't know what happened in their childhood. You don't know if they were abused in their childhood. You don't know if they suffer from rejection from their own parent, own father image, and they're trying to regain that and fill such a painful, deep wound and void within them by sleeping with other men to fill that. And so when you think about it in that way and you understand that, and again, I'm not excusing people's behaviors, because we are adults and as human beings, we are responsible for our behaviors. But I am just saying that once we understand, when we can really put ourselves in that person's shoes, or even just stop to think, I wonder what's happened to them in their life for them to be so cruel, or for them to be so promiscuous, or for them to be so annoying and needing attention all the time, or being so, so desperate and things like that. And I just think that when people don't act in those ways if they're truly at peace with themselves. And so I think that can just help so many of us not react in certain situations, or choose our words more carefully, so that when you go to, let's just say, I'm not saying to excuse that person's behavior, but let's say maybe when you have to confront them about something that they've done, if it affects you personally, putting the thought first of compassion. This is a hat. We're putting the compassion hat on. Putting the thought first in our heads, you know what? This person probably really suffered at one point in their life, and that's why they're behaving this way. Just having that in your mind before you go ahead and say what you're about to say, because otherwise it can come from a place that's like really ugly within our own hearts, and it can just come from like a hateful place instead of speaking the truth in love. I think that was kind of it for the examples. I didn't really want to go into, there's so many examples that I could share, but just to think about that the next time that anything happens. This applies to any situation, just in general, even in customer service, when someone is really like snippety and rude and whatever with you, just keeping in mind that like they're probably either having a horrible day, or just in general that could be part of their character and they're unhappy with their life as a whole, and we don't know what's happened to these people. So once again, not excusing the behavior. For some people, actually, let me just state this, because there are some people who are like healers and they want to save other people in relationships. That's not really the place to do that, because you also don't want to be in a relationship with someone who is abusive towards you, and then you're like, but they were abused by their parents and that's why they're abusing me, so it's okay. Like, no, it doesn't mean you have to be in a relationship with that person, but you can separate yourself and not be with that person, but you can not be the aftermath of it. It allows you to be less hurt by someone else's actions, knowing that it was actually never personal towards me. When they hurt me, it was their own issue, and therefore I have compassion for them, and therefore I can also forgive easier, for an example. And it just helps in general to not have this lasting impact of pain that other people have caused us on our lives. Even when we think of our own parents are just human beings just like us. If we imagine me or you or anyone just having a child right now, would we be ready to? I don't know. That's an individual scenario. But there's definitely a point in my life, I'm kind of going off on a rant right now, but there's definitely a point in my life where I was very, very, very unhealthy. And if I had had a child at that time, I would have unintentionally, emotionally, like, damaged my child through my own toxic behavior. And again, not like intentionally, but I'm just saying, if I was not a healthy person, I would have done that. Does it mean that child, like, if you're looking at it from, I was going to save this for another video, but let's just say this now. If you're looking at it from an outside perspective, okay, this is the last part of the video. If you're looking at it from an outside perspective, a lot of people, if they've had like you grew into a home. You grew up into a home where you weren't appreciated, or worse, you experienced some type of abuse, for an example. That doesn't change your value, because like the I posted a quote before that says, when we came to this earth, we didn't come to this earth to gain our worth. We brought it here with us. So we are already as valuable as we can possibly be. We are like so valuable. And just because of the home that you were born into, it doesn't change anything. So for example, I asked my parents if I can share this, but both of my parents came from really abusive backgrounds in childhoods. And so they wanted to have, like, myself and my siblings have a different life than that. So they had to really work through that. But for an example, just because I was born into a home where my parents were very loving to me doesn't give me any more value than my parents. If I look at my parent who was born into a home where their parent was just doing the best that they could, it doesn't mean that they were any less valuable. So again, and if I had a child when I was not ready to, and I emotionally was unavailable for my child because I was emotionally unavailable for myself at that time, it doesn't mean that that child was any less like precious and deserving of love. If you just think about, like, if I had this baby and you just imagine this baby, and it's like, does that baby not worthy? No, that baby is like precious and has all of its worth, but it was just like human flaws and human error that I unintentionally damaged that child through being emotionally unavailable, as just one example of like neglect and stuff like that. So I don't really know why I just went off into that example, but I guess what I'm saying is that we are all flawed human beings, and all of us have our own stuff. It's not ever personal, and to come from a place of compassion, or at least put that in our minds before we respond to people, and then that helps us to heal more easily too, and say, like, you know, yeah, my parents treated me this way, but it was just their own. They were the best parent they could be with what they knew, because of what their parents taught them and whatever they had gone through. When you think about, you know, people in your life, whatever they have gone through, that's my mom said this really good quote the other day, and I don't remember it. It just came into my mind now. My mom basically said something along the lines of, like, that our lives are basically a reflection of the, like, trauma and things that we experienced when we were young, or something like that. Kind of get the idea. It's a reflection of it. And so that kind of just allows you to be like, okay, you know what, I'm going to be more patient, and I'm going to be more kind, and I'm going to be more thoughtful and slower to speak. So that's it for this video. I'll see you guys next week. Bye.